You don't have to be pretty to taste good. Don't take that out of context.
I forgot to record a proper intro, but welcome to a baking video. I sometimes do stuff besides talk about movies. So today I'm making a coffee cake based on the quote-unquote official Starbucks recipe.
This is my kitchen.
Yes, it is. You'll need both cold and softened butter, all-purpose flour and sugar, cornstarch, I'll explain that later, baking soda, baking powder, eggs, Greek yogurt, I used non-fat, I'm not sure if it matters, light brown sugar, cinnamon powder, and vanilla extract, as well as no fewer than 3 large bowls and a motley crew of assorted measuring paraphernalia. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit before quickly changing it to preheat to 325 instead because you didn't read the directions right the first time. Put the white sugar in the biggest bowl you have available and then add the softened butter, unless you're me, and then it's a little bit more melted than softened.
Butter, which is melted. Because I am stupid.
Yeah, I'm usually a lot better at softening butter without straight up melting it, but the baking gods just really had it in for me today. Just you wait. Anyway, cream together the butter and sugar until it looks something like this, but do a better job at it than I did. And now a word from our sponsor, I mean Stepdad.
Oh, you making brownies?
No,
I like your socks.
thanks. I'm not making brownies, I'm making coffee cake.
Oh,
Also,
yeah, you said you were
recording.
gonna.
Do you want to say hi?
Hi!
I'm leaving that in, by the way.
You do that.
Add 3 eggs, mixing between each egg addition. Now it's time to scrape down the sides of the bowl, so find a spatula.
This'll work.
Be one with the dough, it'll tell you what it needs.
Oh, remember how I said you would need cornstarch?
We don't have cake flour, so I need to make cake flour.
Huh. How do you make cake flour?
According to Google, you measure 1 cup of all-purpose flour, remove 2 tablespoons of the flour, and then add the flour to a mixing bowl, and then add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and whisk well.
Do we have cornstarch?
We do have cornstarch.
Oh, sounds like you got it made.
I suppose I do.
Here's me making that cake flour really fast. This isn't sped up at all, I'm just that good. Now, when you add the cornstarch to the AP flour, make sure to get it all over you, even if the camera doesn't pick it up that well. Then you add the baking powder and the baking soda, and don't bother whisking the dry ingredients together, it'll be fine. If you can figure out what I forgot to add, comment below and you could win a prize. I mean, I won't give you one, but maybe the universe will. Next, spend way too much time scraping Greek yogurt out of the containers and add the vanilla extract to it. In the midst of this, I realized it smelled so yummy, so I tasted it, but it just tasted like plain yogurt, which is fine, I guess. Now go ahead and whisk the dry ingredients together. Add about 1/3 of the dry ingredients to the butter, sugar, egg mixture from earlier and fold it in. Then do the same thing with 1/3 of the Greek yogurt and vanilla mixture. Do that a couple more times till it's all mixed in together. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of folding in baking terms, this is what it looks like. And here it is again from the top because I'm a hashtag professional. Now set the batter aside and start making the cinnamon streusel topping / middle layer. But first, do you remember earlier when I said I had forgotten something? If you guessed that I had forgotten salt, congratulations, you won! Your prize can be watching me stand here for much longer than I'd care to admit, contemplating my entire existence. Now you can start making the cinnamon streusel topping, but first hit a sick dab. And here's me measuring the ingredients for the streusel. Don't worry, I didn't forget the salt in this part, I just cut it out because the video is already getting kinda long. When adding the cinnamon, make sure to use a container that's already been opened, even if you already grabbed a brand new bottle that's in your cabinet. You may have to scoop some stuff around to find it, including 2 entire bottles of ground cumin. And since this is not an episode of Drake and Josh, we are not going to be using cumin in place of cinnamon. Those are not the same. This is me going back and adding some salt to the cake batter because I'd convinced myself that it was important enough to warrant going back and adding it. And then I added the butter to the streusel. I did cube it beforehand, but only into pretty large chunks, so I did end up going back in with the knife and cutting up the butter smaller to try and make it easier to mush with a fork. Oh look, time for a water break. Unfortunately, I am built like a single angel hair pasta noodle, so I decided to mash it up with my hands. Don't worry, I washed them first. That's a pretty decent texture, I think. Not that I would know, I've never made streusel before. Next, I'm just greasing a loaf pan with some butter, which turned out to be my second big mistake. The recipe says loaf pan, but I really should have used 2, or at least 2 small brownie tins, or even just mini muffin tins like you'll see me use in a bit. But instead I tried to fit it all in one loaf pan, and that didn't go very well. Anyway, once I put the first layer of batter in the pan, I covered it with a nice layer of that streusel topping filling, although I probably could have gotten away with adding a little bit more of that filling in there just to give it more of a cinnamony taste, but it turned out okay, so I really can't complain too much. And now for the second layer of batter, I smoothed it out the best I could, then sprinkled a lovely thick top layer of the streusel on. And then, like I said earlier, I ended up putting the rest of the batter and the streusel topping into a little mini muffin tin, and I made little mini muffin versions of the cinnamon coffee cake, and it actually ended up being my favorite part of this whole bake. Once the big singular loaf went into the oven, I cleaned a little bit, and by cleaned I mean I threw everything into the sink with some dish soap and warm water, but not before licking some of the utensils. A bit more cleaning up later, and the timer went off. But, yeah, it definitely needed some extra time in the oven. Here's me with my dog Lexi. She's a 6-year-old diabetic Yorkie. Yes, she is so very sweet. Yes, she barks the most. Yes, she's very demanding, like when she demanded cuddles while I was trying to bake stuff.
So, I put the big one in the oven at approximately 12:30-ish, give or take a couple minutes. It is now 1:21. The center is still not done, and I'm hungry. So I'm going to have lunch, and hopefully, eventually, this stupid coffee cake that I messed up will be done and taste mostly fine. We'll see.
Yeah, I've just kind of stopped timing it at this point.
I hecked up, boys.
Finally.
It's looking like they're done! They're not the prettiest, but you know what? You don't have to be pretty to taste good. Don't take that out of context. Okay, now I just have to wait for everything to cool off, and then I will give a taste test.
Okay, so I forgot to record a proper taste test, but basically everything turned out fine, despite the baking gods trying their best to make it not good. Remember to stay safe, and if you can't stay safe, at least try to have fun. Bye!
And I sang dab, dab, double, 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 evil, 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 evil songs. Hell, you know that's how I get along. The world is full of tragedy, so how